Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today I have something a little bit different for you all. So, some of you may be familiar, at least vaguely, with the concept of the Forever Draft, the Ultimate Draft, the drafting every single Fire Emblem game. Actual Lizard did it on his channel with a couple of other people in the community, and today I'm not going through a Forever Draft. I think that is a little bit crazy. Also, I'm going to turn down the music a little bit here. It seems like it's drowning me out. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what like a draft strategy might be, because the concept of a forever draft and what the strategy is for that is just so fascinating to me, and I really wanted an excuse to explore and discuss it without having to actually go through and do a live draft. At least not yet. So, real quick, what is the Forever Draft? What are the rules? So the Forever Draft is a draft of every single Fire Emblem game. I have them nicely ordered out from oldest to newest, in which you play by draft rules, where you draft what units you have, and only those units are allowed to be fielded. There are some exceptions in regards to free units. It looks like on their free draft they listed all lords obviously as free, most Jagans as free, not every single one, but most of them, the ones that aren't like solo the game capable of themselves, like no Seth, no Fire Emblem 9 Titania, but like yes, FE1 Jagan, yes, FE3 Market, not Marcus, Aaron, FE6 Marcus, but not FE7 Marcus, so on and so forth. Looks like also every dancer, and at least one thief for most games where that matters. Or, in the case of Thracia, they allowed for Lara, who's a thief into dancer, and Safi as well, I guess, because potentially not having a staff unit in Thracia is terrible. As well as a couple of Gotos, just to make sure that every army has something for the late game. So what is your draft strategy then, assuming that you know a decent amount of the games in question? What would a good draft strategy be? Well, first of all, know what you most desperately need. What games are going to really need more units, or specific units. For instance, I would say that the first game to consider, like #1 priority, it would either be Thracia or Radiant Dawn. Thracia because, well, every unit plays different vital roles, and while you can theoretically get through the game with just the free units, it's not going to be pretty. And you're definitely going to want some muscle in terms of your capturing units, any sort of additional utility units, like staff utility, thief utility, as well as just kind of filler units, because it is Thracia, you do need some units to reach minimum deployment, and you also want some units that are good at combat. You don't necessarily need a ton of units that are good at combat, but you want a decent number of them, and you want to be able to do combat throughout the game. Obvious picks for like first draft choice are like Asvel. I think Asvel is like top tier first pick draft for the Forever Draft. Another game, like I said, that is worth consideration is Radiant Dawn. And if we're thinking Radiant Dawn, an obvious first draft pick for that would be Jill, because you're gonna need someone to get you through the Dawn Brigade. Soth and Micaiah can't do it themselves, especially Act 3, and Jill is probably the easiest choice to be able to get you through that with all the resources funneled to her. Aaron, Nolan, even Edward or Leonardo wouldn't be terrible picks, but someone specifically from the Dawn Brigade would be a very, very vital first draft pick. I think that in regards for Act 2, they're allowing some units to be free, like on their force deployed maps, because if you'd had to draft your units for Act 2, that would be a nightmare. If you somehow ended up with bad luck and not drafting any units, what, does the game become unplayable? I don't think they would cause that to happen. But definitely consider Dawn Brigade units very highly. Definitely consider Thracia units very highly, are my immediate gut reaction picks. Again, depends on what the free rules are. FE6 is another very difficult game. Awakening, you don't necessarily need too many units beyond Robin, Frederick, Crom, Robin, Frederick, Crom, Melissa, and your dancer, Olivia. I don't think you necessarily need too many more units in Awakening. It's going to be miserable if you're on a higher difficulty especially, but it's not, any more miserable than Lunatic Plus is by default. Fates is weird because the only free units they allowed, it looks like, are Corrin, the Butler, and Azura, which can get you decently far, but you're probably going to want someone else, at least 1 or 2 carries for each difficulty. Corrin can be a very solid rev carry, but you're going to want some flyer support. You might want to pick up Ryoma just to make the back half of Birthright a breeze, but it's not that difficult on lower difficulties, and even on Lunatic, Corrin can still do quite well. So I would say for Fates, you're gonna want to draft for Conquest. So Niles is a very, very high tier pick, in my opinion. The fact that you get the units, if I'm understanding it right, you draft one of these units and then you get them for all the runs of Fates you have to do, does give more benefit to picking Fates with a higher priority, but I still think it's a lower priority than Radiant Dawn, Dawn Brigade, or Thracia. Gaiden and Shadows of Valentia, you can do pretty well with your basic units. 3 houses, only free units are Byleth, your main lords, and Anna. So you're definitely going to want to pick up at least a couple units, probably like 1 or 2 from each house, just to make sure you have some, assuming you're going to do a playthrough of each route. If you're only going to do 1 playthrough, then just, decide on a route and stick with it. But if you're going full hardcore mode and you have to do all 4 playthroughs, you're gonna want at least 1 or 2 pickup units from every house. And then Engage, looks like for free are Alir, Vander, Seedal, and then final 2 units. So probably just 1 or 2 other early game units and you're fine for Engage. Engage, being a much more player phase focused game, does highly encourage you to have multiple units. It's not absolutely vital except on higher difficulties, but it is a game that you might need to consider because the cast is, relatively speaking, pretty slim for Engage. So I guess what I'm talking about is like tiering in order of what units you will really want. What does their FE4 limit look like? Looks like free units of FE4 is literally just Sigurd, Seliph, and then your respective dancers. So probably, yeah, I guess, what do you need to beat each game? Let's start there. What do you actually need? Fire Emblem 1, I've proven you just need Marth and someone to hold the Geosphere. That can be Jagan. Ideally, you would like Marth to get the Falchion, which means you need a mage. And so your choices for that are Merrick, Wendell, Lind, Boa, and then if you really want to hurt yourself, Riss, Lena, or Maria. Because you don't gain experience by healing, you only gain experience by taking hits as a cleric. In that respect, I would say probably Wendell top tier, then Boa, because all you need them for is just beating Garneth. Wendell and then Boa because they can also use Warp. And then below them, Lind, Merrick. Below them, Lena, Maria, Riss. Everyone else is just for fun. You don't need anything else to beat that game. Ultimately, you're just drafting to make your job easier, but I think FE1 is plenty easy just with Marth, considering my Marth solo run that I just recently finished. Marth, Jagan, and like a mage. Ideally a mage that can also use staves. FE2, what do you need? You have Alm, Celica, and May, it looks like. I think they gave you May because Celica's route is hard enough early on that you need at least some assistance. It's not just Celica. Alm's pretty fine. Like, ideally you'd want Silk, but I don't think that she's a super high priority pickup. Celica, you're probably gonna want one of the Pegasus Knights. One of the Pegasus Knights and one of the Dread Fighters, probably for Celica's route. And for Alm's route, you're gonna want someone, but it doesn't necessarily matter who you get. Experience can be funneled pretty well, and you should be fine. Alm just needs a little bit of help fighting through and getting to the point where he gets his promotion. So, a little bit higher priority of getting someone, but it doesn't really matter who you get. So long as you can get 1 or 2 units on either team, you're probably fine. FE3, Marth can't quite as easily solo FE3, especially considering it's Book 1 and Book 2. You're gonna want some assistance for that. Consider units that are in both Book 1 and Book 2 and are decently available. But aside from that, so long as you're not picking, like there aren't a ton of absolutely horrible choices, but FE3 is definitely a game where you need some assistance. Marth can't easily solo it. Like, Marth and Aaron can do fine, Marth, Aaron, and Fina, but you will want a couple other units just to help you through. Again, you'll pretty much need a mage for Book 1 in order to get Falchion. You're going to want some units for Book 2. Some of the staffers, like I think Yulia with the rescue staff is really nice. But depending on who you get, the rescue staff might not even be that important. Yeah. Book 3, fine. Book 3, FE3, Book 1, Book 2, decent priority, but again, no one in particular is super mission critical. FE4, you really are going to want some units across both books 1 and 2, generations 1 and 2. Sigurd is probably fine, so Generation 1 isn't super important. Though, if you want any specific Gen 2 units that are children, you're probably going to need to pick up their parents as well. What parents you want. And so, drafting for children and parents, I guess it depends on how they handled those rules specifically. I don't remember off the top of my head. But drafting parents for children, you are definitely going to want some units for Gen 2 especially. Gen 1 doesn't matter as much so long as you can get your Gen 2 set up. Gen 2, even though Seliph is very good, Gen 2 enemies, especially bosses, are much stronger, and it's a lot more difficult to be everywhere at once with one unit, and so you're going to want 1 or 2 other powerhouse units to help out. Ideally, someone like a Forseti user, so Arthur, maybe Sed, with Forseti, and yeah. Thracia, like I said, is probably number 1 or number 2 priority for getting at least someone. I personally would say Asvel is like number 1 priority, because you already have Safi on your team. So Asvel's high priority. Finn is another pretty high priority, just because of all the capture utility he has from his Brave Lance, both capture and combat utility. Basically, with what's been given to you, you have your staff utility through Safi. It's not a lot, but it is something, so you can consider getting a second staffer. But what you really are going to want is some combat. Asvel allows you to do all of the cheap warp strats, where you warp Asvel turn 1, you warp Leaf turn 2. You could potentially get some utility out of other units, but I think Asvel is probably like S tier in terms of necessary picks. Looks like they have special rules for Seth, Marcus, Titania, FE11, Jagan, Camilla, and Ryoma. So I guess that, Ryoma and, the Fates rules are odd in that. But yeah, Asvel definitely. And other than that, some more combat filler, capture filler. Pick who you want based on availability. FE6, you're probably going to want some units to help out with early game. You're almost certainly going to want a Thief and some sort of staff wielder. Yeah, because your only free units are Roy, Marcus, a Dancer, and Fa. So, some sort of staffer, at least 1 or 2 good combat units, and a Thief is what you need to make it through FE6, because Roy and Marcus can't do it on their own. They definitely need help. So FE6 is a high priority game to get some good units for. I wouldn't say it's as mission critical as Thracia, but definitely a game that you're going to need some help with. FE7, you have the Lords, you have Matthew, you have your Dancers, and you have Goto. Technically, that's all you need. You're probably going to want 1 Cavalier and or Flyer just to make life easier for you. But you have all 3 Lords. You have all that you really need. 1 or 2 Cavs or Flyers, maybe a little combat utility, but you can probably pick that up late into the draft. I would say focus on getting like a Cavalry or a Flyer like Florina, and then just use that for the rest of the game. You're pretty much golden after that. FE8, you have Erica, Ephraim, and Tethys free, and Seth on special rules. FE8, probably gonna want 1 or 2 other combat utility units, either Vanessa, Franz. Like it feels like very similar drafting rules for FE8. You're gonna want a combat utility unit. You're probably gonna want a healer. And so Vanessa, Franz, Mulder, Natasha are all pretty decently high tier picks for FE8. If you can get one of those fairly early on, you're pretty much golden and can pick up whoever else you want for combat utility. FE9 only for units are Ike, Soth, and Rayson, and Elincia. So some early unit to help you get through. Like, I know you have Titania on special rules. Probably you're going to want an early carry that you can build up. So Boyd, Oscar, Kieran would be my personal high tier picks. Marcia definitely top tier. Marcia or Jill, if you can get one of those, you're pretty much set for life. And then, due to the way Path of Radiance works, you can just dump bonus experience into like a handful of units and watch them mow through the map. You just need to make sure that they're still stocked up on weapons, don't run out. Path of Radiance, not too hard of a game. You're just going to want a little bit of support to make your life easier. Radiant Dawn is the harder one, because Dawn Brigade sucks and needs all the help it can get. Soth can only take you so far. And Grail Mercenaries need a little bit of assistance too. if you can manage to get Har and or Jill, I think Jill is like up there with Asvel for contender for like #1 pick of the entire draft. Har is pretty decent. As for the rest, I mean, Ilyana's available, but she's not good. Some sort of Dawn Brigade help is what you're going to need. And then 1 or 2 Grail Mercs helps, because until like gets Ragnell and promotes, he can start to slow down a little bit. There's a lot of enemies to kill, and he can't be all the places he needs to be super easily. But yeah. Shadow Dragon on the DS. Looks like only person free is Marth, which is a problem. You're definitely going to want Sita and a Warper to make your life super easy. Failing that, if you don't get Sita, you're going to want Wolf or Sedgar. Failing that, definitely a Warper and 1 or 2 other solid units. Depends on the difficulty you're playing on. I don't think the Forever Draft is being assumed hard 5. If I were to say, like, if it's just, like, on normal, you can consider, like, you know, Frey. I personally would say that Sita, Sedgar Wolf, and a Warp Staff user like Lena or Wendell are top tier for this game picks. Everyone else, like, you're going to want one of your starting Cavs, Kane, Abel, Harden, probably in that next tier. Other units, probably pretty decent, like Minerva, but not a ton elsewise that are standing out to me that are going to be like really important or necessary. So, again, depends on difficulty. If you think that you're going to need some extra assistance, getting Jake or Beck could be pretty helpful. Getting Tiki to help with the final boss, Tiki or Nagi, just to guarantee that you have a way to beat the final boss. Again, a mage can help out, but I think in Shadow Dragon that's the lowest priority for getting Falchion of all the FE1 remakes, so not super high priority there. FE12 New Mystery is more interesting because there's a lot more to do and a lot more danger. It looks like, though, to cover for that, they give you Chris, Aaron, Pala, and Fina for free, which technically is all you need, as Don Don has shown us many moons ago. I still think you might want a little bit extra help or a little bit of staff assistance, and so maybe getting a staff bot or getting a combat unit or 2 like Minerva or Sirius can really help, but not as mission critical because you have a decent amount of free units there. Awakening, like I said, Robin plus Frederick plus Lissa. I guess they don't give Olivia for free. It's just Crom, Robin, Frederick, Lissa, and Morgan that they give for free. So you can pick whoever you want. Robin plus Frederick basically wins you the game for free. Low priority, in my opinion. Fates is weird. Again, you get the Corins, the Butlers, and Azura. So you're probably going to want 1 or 2 units to help carry, especially in Conquest. I would definitely recommend prioritizing Conquest, and then you can kind of pick up the dregs of Birthright and Revelations, because that's not as important. Echoes, you have, again, Alm, Celica, and May free. I still think that you need probably at least 1 villager, maybe Silk, probably 1 Dreadfighter, and probably 1 Flyer for Celica's route, just to make things so much easier through the desert and the swamp. You're gonna want a Flyer if at all possible. So I would put that like a high-ish priority, not as high as getting your Dawn Brigade carry or your Thracia carry, but definitely higher up on the list. Three houses, I do not know enough about three houses to say for sure who's the best pick and who's the worst, but I definitely feel like you're going to want some assistance. Again, highly depends on difficulty being played, and what routes you're assuming as well that you need to play. If you're just assuming one route, you can probably do it with just one or two house members. I know the speedrun basically just uses Byleth Main Lord, but yeah, you're gonna want some assistance for whatever runs you're doing. Safe bets actually might be Sylvain, since you can easily get him into any route. And then other like key critical units, I think the lowest priorities are the ones that are only available in one route, unless it's a specific one route run that is being accounted for in the rules, in which case, you know, go ham. Just pick whatever's easiest for you to use. Lysithea is probably pretty high consideration, just due to high magic, warp strats, all the reasons Lysithea is good. But it's like Lysithea, Sylvain, maybe Felix, maybe Bernie, I don't know. I don't know the three houses meta. And then Engage. You're probably going to want one or two other additional combat units to get you through the mid-game. So it's hard to say exactly who to pick, because if you have the freedom to give them every resource they need, any unit can turn out pretty good. But that just does determine kind of what strategies you're going for. Like, for instance, if you leave it till later and you get like Citrine, well, you're going to be digging for an Olwyn ring, and then once you get it, you're fine. If you go for like Jean or Anna, okay, you need, you know, maybe another unit to help get them up to speed, but once they start rolling, you're pretty fine. You can go for a unit like Ivy, a unit that's later on. You'll just need a little bit of help getting to the end, and so maybe you pick up like Louis as well. That's my thoughts. So basically what I've come to as I've gone through everything is that Thracia and Radiant Dawn, particularly Dawn Brigade, and Fates are high importance. Shadow Dragon has decently high importance, but only if you can get... Like, Shadow Dragon is very high importance for, like, one specific unit that you're looking for. Actually, I can drag these up. Here are my personal top picks for, like, if you end up, you know, somehow doing a forever draft. Here are my top picks for units that you're really gonna want to heavily consider. Where's FE10? Jill. Har. I'm putting Har A tier because I don't think he's quite as necessary as Asvel and Jill, but he definitely helps. FE11, Sita, definitely S tier. Wolf and Sedgar, definitely A tier. I guess I'm just going to be assembling this list now, based on what I talked about. Awakening, bunch of scrubs. Here, I don't have any specific picks. Just kind of a general, hey, prioritize you. This is maybe more my personal leanings, but I think that something like these are definitely very helpful here. Not necessarily saying it like Tobin specifically, but just like for the villagers. Up here, probably similar, different. That feels right. FE3, was there anyone in particular? That's a very high importance. Not necessarily. Alicia is pretty useful because of no, wait, not that's use Hammer and Yumina as rescue. Yeah, failing the ability to get Asvel, I think Dagdar and Finn and Ocean are definitely worthy considerations. Radiant Dawn, we had Jill, but then I'd also put like on a lower tier Nolan, and then like Edward and Volag. He's over here. Just someone to help you get through Act 3 Dawn Brigade maps. Because you are gonna need the assistance. There. 12 was like, yeah, maybe someone, but no one in particular stands out. Engage, again, no one in particular. 3 houses, depends on your specific setups. Yeah, and then in terms of like best for their respective games, but not super important, I'd say like Wendell. Getting Wendell makes your life a whole lot easier, but you know, still perfectly doable without. Getting like Alan or Lance or someone to make FE6 easier is definitely a critical pick, because you are going to need help with that. FE7, not really. Like I said, like Florina, maybe one of the calves. I'll just like throw Sane up here just to represent that. FE8, you're gonna want units like a carry to help assist whatever you're doing. Yeah. So basically, I guess if we're going after, are there specific, like highly specific individual units that you will want definitely in the Forever Draft that, in my opinion, take higher priority than anyone else? Asvel, FE10 Jill, Shadow Dragon Sita, FE10 Har, Shadow Dragon Sedgar, Shadow Dragon Wolf. I should probably, like, just representative for a Warp Staff user for FE3, FE1, FE3, FE11. Some sort of other combat assistance in Thracia, be that Dagdar, Ocean, Finn. A flyer for Celica's route for Gaiden and Echoes. More so in Echoes than in Gaiden, but both are very important. A little bit of assistance for Alm's route. Failing getting Jill, someone to help carry the Dawn Brigade through. Just someone, anyone. I guess, yeah, this is like warp support for... representative of warp support for FE1, FE3, FE11. Some combat assistance for Fire Emblem 6, definitely, to get you through that game. some sort of mounted utility, a mage, just to make sure you can get Falchion in Fire Emblem 1 and Fire Emblem 3, and then a carry for Fire Emblem 8. Outside of that, it's like, okay, someone to help with FE4, whatever utility you need to make your life easier for Awakening, Fates, Three Houses, and Engage. And then maybe, you know, failing that, it's like, okay, if you can get, like, Marcia, it's obviously a high tier pick for Path of Radiance, but not super necessary. It's like, okay, these are my top picks for who to aim for in general, if you would be doing a Forever Draft. Again, it depends on the rules, depends on the difficulty, depends on a lot of factors. But if it were up to me and I was playing through, I would definitely want... I would order my picks somewhat like this. Because if I can get Asvel, if I can get FE10 Jill, if I can get FE11 Sita, I'm done. I'm done with that game. If I can't, I'm gonna need a lot more help with that game. Other than that, it's like, okay, you need some help for some of these other games, but like 1 or 2 units is all you really need. So like FE8, FE7, just get a good mounted unit, you're fine. FE1, FE3, get a mage so you can kill Garneth and get Falchion, then you're fine. FE6 is kind of that middle ground of like, it doesn't necessarily matter who you get, but you're going to need a couple combat units to get you through the game. Same with Echoes and Guided and all of that. Yeah. But that's enough of me rambling on about the Forever Draft and the concept involved. What do you think? What are your top picks of Fire Emblem units of all time, specifically for the Forever Draft? Do you agree with my picks? Do you think I'm a total idiot and need to rethink all of them? Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, this is Mythos Zenith signing out.